Hello and welcome to earlymusicsources.com. My name is Elam Rotem, and today we'll talk about early word painting. Word painting is a term that describes the illustration of words in music. The way music can be used to help express words, things, actions, and even emotions. We have discussed word painting in former episodes, but in this one we will discuss it in the context of the early madrigal. We will do so by looking at a piece by Philippe Verdelot, a composer who can be regarded as the father of the 16th century Italian madrigal. Before we do so, let's discuss the term word painting. There are many ways in which text can be connected with music. A most basic and technical way, for instance, is to match the syntax of the text with the syntax of the music, to have the textual part or sentences start and end along with the musical parts or sentences. A more intense text-music connection is to have the meaning of the text be expressed in some way in the music. Some composers were so good at this that they were compared to painters in their ability to set images before the eyes of the listeners. The idea of making listeners see images comes from the art of rhetoric, and was recognized by classical Greek and Roman writers as a way to delight people, as well as stir their emotions. Renaissance artists believed in this idea, and with it aimed to excite listeners in order to give them pleasure and also to help them feel religious devotion. Expressing the meaning of the text in music could be done on varying levels of intensity, the lowest of which can be completely missed by the listeners. A famous example for such a case is Josquin de Prez's lament over his master Johannes Ockeghem. A mournful sentiment is added to the composition by having all the notes written in black. While it changes the notation, it doesn't change anything in the music. A proof for that is that one of the piece's sources is written in standard notation, and the music is just the same. Perhaps, however, it was meant to put the singers, those who actually see the image, in a more mournful mood. A slightly more evident text-music connection is to choose the mode of a composition according to its text. For example, a mode that is considered mournful for a mournful text. This is still a rather loose connection. When the term word painting is used, however, it is often meant that specific words are somehow expressed in music. And this also could be on varying levels of intensity. For example, in Tomás Luis de Victoria's motet Nigra sum, I am black, he used a emiolia proportion for the opening words, as it includes blackening the otherwise hollow note shapes. Unlike in the Josquin example, the blackening of the notes does have a musical meaning. It changes the division of the semibreve from 2 minims to 3 black minims. But it is still rather symbolic. There is nothing black about this proportion. It doesn't sound black. He uses it thanks to its graphic black representation that can be appreciated mainly by the singers. Other cases of word painting, however, can be appreciated also by the listeners. For example, more than half a century earlier in Josquin's motet Uc me sidereo, on the phrase Descendere iusit Olimpo, come down from Olympus, the voices have a descending melody. Some of them descend no less than an octave and a fifth, from high D to low G, literally going down. This kind of music-text connection is something that any listener who understands the language of the text may appreciate. Later in the same motet, on the phrase verbera tanta pati, to suffer such blows, Josquin employs unusual repetition, as if converting the sense of getting physical repeated blows into musical repeated blows. In modern times, the term word painting is often used as a synonym for the term madrigalism, as it is one of the central characteristics of the 16th century Italian madrigal. As you see, however, the phenomenon is bigger than the genre of the madrigal, so this term is not always useful. A nice thing about word painting is that it can be used subtly, but also rather bluntly, having the music change very rapidly, following each individual word. This can sometimes even seem contradictory to the meaning of what is described in the text. For example, this is the last line of Luca Marenzio's madrigal Nel dolce seno. Without even trying to understand the meaning of this line, we see that on the word agghiacciar, freezing, he uses long and harsh notes, as would be appropriate when composing this word. Similarly, on the word ardenti, burning, we see many fast-moving notes with bursts of even faster notes in different moments. Marenzio really painted every word. Let's listen. But the actual meaning of this phrase, in direct translation, is freezing between the lips are the burning kisses. That is, once this text was finished, the kisses were freezing. So, if the music were to be expressing the meaning of the entire sentence, all of this phrase should have been composed in a frozen manner. Instead, because of the individual rendering of every word, it ends with very fiery music. It seems then that for Marenzio, word painting was stronger than meaning painting. For some composers, it was so important to express or imitate the words strongly that if, for example, the text was horrific, it was legitimate for the music to be similarly horrific. By horrific, I mean ugly on purpose. Of course, every composer and period had their own standards of what is acceptable ugliness and what is unacceptable ugliness. But it was so that the more the listeners were moved by it, or just twitch in their chairs, the better. Examples for this kind of strong word painting got more intense towards the end of the 16th century, and are often categorized under the term seconda pratica. In another episode, we analyzed in detail the famous complaints of Artusi on some crude moments from a madrigal by Monteverdi. Check it out if you wish. Now that we have a general idea about word painting, we can look at a madrigal by Philippe Verdelot, one of the first composers of the genre. Verdelot's word painting is generally subtle when compared to later composers. But this specific madrigal really foresees the way madrigals will be composed during the 16th century. The title of the madrigal is Con soave parlar con dolce accento, with soft words and sweet tones. Let's see. This madrigal was first published in Verdelot's second book of madrigals in 1534. The text describes a dream scene, where the protagonist dreams of his lover approaching him. He is very happy and excited about it, but then the lover vanishes, and he is then awakened sad and disappointed. Giovanna Baviera, who will later also sing the soprano part of the madrigal, will read it for us in Italian. You may follow the English translation.
Con suave parlar, con dolce accento, dormendo a me chiamavo la bella donna mia, anzi il mio core, la qual in un momento lieta m'apparsi in compagnia d'amore. Ond'io, tutto contento del suo divino aspetto m'infiammavo, ma lei del vano ardore presto s'accorse e sparse come un vento. Allor dall'alto sonno mi svegliavo e vinto dal dolore d'averla persa, a seguitarla intento veloce m'ordinavo. Ma l'impresa lasciai, visto il mio errore.
For the general setting of this night scene, Verdelot chooses a mode which is considered soft, an F mode with a flat. This also fits perfectly to the first line, with soft words and sweet tones, which is rendered in a low register and is thus soft. The word accento can be translated in many ways, and is often used in poetry along with the adjective sweet when describing music. In musical contexts, it is sometimes used to describe little ornaments, and in some cases even specific ornaments. In any case, it may be equivalent to a certain sweet sonic sparkle, and this is exactly the effect that is created here thanks to the alto touching the sixth before settling on the fifth. Let's listen to my group Profeti della Quinta singing this very soft beginning. In the dream, he calls for his lover, and when she suddenly appears, things start to be exciting. The way it is expressed in music is by having the tenor line be syncopated, shifted by a quarter note in comparison to the other voices. This creates a very agitated effect. Only when he describes her divine appearance do the voices really sync together again, and little melismas ornament the word m'infiammavo, to burn. Let's listen.
Dormella me chiamavo, la bella donna mia, anzi il mio cuore, la quale in un momento lieta m'apparsi in compagnia d'amore. Ond'io tutto contento del suo divino aspetto m'infiammavo.
At this point, the lover notices our excited protagonist and decides to quickly vanish, like the wind. In order to be quick like the wind, Verdelot composes this line using quarter notes. Normally, and according to the treatises of the time, the fastest values that can carry a text syllable are half notes. This is why quarter notes are considered faster than the wind for Verdelot. Let's listen.
Presto s'accorse e sparse come un vento.
Then the dreamer comes out of his alto sonno, in Italian literally high sleep. A very straightforward word painting occurs when Verdelot makes the bass and alto go up. Then comes the grief. As you know from other episodes, in Renaissance terms, sadness is regarded as a soft affect. The softest note that Verdelot can go within the boundaries of his style is E-flat. Thus, an E-flat chord can often be found in Verdelot's music when crying or grieving is concerned. Let's listen to our dreamer awaken and then overcome with E-flat, that is, with grief.
Allor dall'alto sonno mi svegliavo e
When our protagonist decides to chase his lover quickly, Verdelot again uses the fast quarter notes. The final phrase, where the protagonist realized that it was just a dream, is not especially painted with words. Instead, it is a more generic festive ending, which repeats twice. This was our show about early word painting. We hope you enjoyed it. If you wish to listen to the full performance of this madrigal, as well as others, don't miss the upcoming CD release of Profeti della Quinta. Many thanks to Catherine Motus for joining the writing of this episode. Don't forget to check the special page on our website with all the footnotes and other extra information. If you enjoy Early Music Sources, consider supporting it on Patreon. Comment, share and like. See you next time at earlymusicsources.com.